pictures of the runaways on the wall. Seems like these days you couldn't run away at all. And even if you did, what you got to run away to? Just another drunk daddy with a white man's point of view. I can see you in my mind's eye catching light. Sleep beside the river if we make it out of town tonight. You've been stripping Portland from the day you turned 16. You got one thing to sell, benzodiazepine. And 10 years ago I might have seen you dancing in a different light and offered up my help in different ways. But those were different days. Those were different days. Had a girl back home and we shared a single bed. When I whispered in her ear, she believed every word I said. And if she didn't believe, she didn't dare give me slack. Or it was, baby, I love you, get off of my goddamn back. Time went by and I left again. Jesus loves the sinner, but the highway loves the sin. My daddy told me, I believe he told me true, that the right thing's always the hardest thing to do. 10 years ago I might have stuck around for another night and used her in 1,000 different ways. But those were different days. Those were different days. And the story's only mine to live and die with, and the answer's only mine to come across. But the ghosts that I got scared and I got high with look a little lost. 10 years ago I might thought I didn't have the right to say the things an outlaw wouldn't say. But those were different days. Those were different days. Those were different days. Are you having a long day? Everyone you meet rubs you the wrong way. Dirty city streets smell like an ashtray. Morning bells are ringing in your ear. He's a brother on a church kick. Seems like just a different kind of dope sick. Better off to teach a dog a card trick and try to have a point and make it clear. And you should know, compared to people on a global scale, our kind has had it relatively easy. Here with you there's always something to look forward to. My angry heart beats relatively easy. Christmas time when folks go off the deep end. His woman took the kids and he took Klonopin, enough to kill a man of twice his size. Not for me to understand. Remember him when he was still a proud man. A vandal smile, a baseball in his right hand, nothing but the blue sky in his eyes. Still compared to those a stone's throw away from you, our lives have both been relatively easy. Take a year and make a break, there ain't that much at stake. The answers could be relatively easy. That lucky man walk to work again. He may not have a friend left in the world. See him walking home again to sleep alone. I step into a shop to buy a postcard for a girl. I broke the law, boys, shooting out the windows of my boys. When they picked me up, I made a big noise. Everything to blame except my mind. And I should say I keep your picture with me every day. The evenings now are relatively easy. Here with you, there's always something to look forward to. My lonely heart beats relatively easy. My lonely heart beats relatively easy.
All right, hope y'all are doing great. We're going to be starting in just a minute. For those of you that have not, please install the please make sure you install the QA Plug Find Bugs plugin into your Android Studio. We're going to be using that today along with the same project we've been using. So please install the QA Plug Find Bugs plugin into your Android Studio. If you don't know how to do this, again, go to Settings and Plugins. You can find it there. Give you guys and gals just a minute to do that. Get started.
Too far from my raising, I forgot where I come from, and the line between right and wrong was so fine.
Please let me know when you're done installing that by pressing Heart on Minty.
Keep liquor here, never cared for wine or beer. And working for the county keeps me piss and clear. The nights are dry as dust, but I'm letting my eyes adjust. If it takes a lifetime.
Again, please install Find Bugs. Once you're done, press Heart and Minty. I see only 3 of you have got that happening so far, so let's get a few more of you. There's a lot of you on the stream already. Let's get that number higher. Go. All right, 6 of you got that installed. Hurry up and get that installed because we're going to move on in just a minute. All right, hope y'all are doing great. Welcome to CSMC 355. We're going to go ahead and get started for today. Hopefully you've done what you've supposed to have been doing on the screen, installing QA Plug Find Bugs into your Android Studio. If not, try and get that done. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about static analysis. Again, this is just analysis of your code without running it, often to help find potential errors before they happen. Few announcements before we get started with class today. Demo number 2 is due when? Next Tuesday. Double check on Gradescope as to when it is actually due. I believe it is next Tuesday. In fact, I'm going to actually double check real quick to make sure I'm not telling you wrong because it's been a while since I put that in there. But I believe it is next Tuesday. Again. Almost there. And it is due, roll please, May 5th, 3 a.m., which is, yes, next Tuesday night or, of course, early Wednesday morning. All right, next, the exam will be on December 4th. As you guys and gals know, we talked about it last time. The exam will be the very similar format to last time. And it'll be the kind of thing where I'll open it up. You'll have basically an entire day and maybe 2 days to take it at your leisure. It'll probably take about an hour and a half. And remember, it is time limited. So you've got it. It's open notes and open slides and things like that, but not open friends. And so you got to study ahead of time because you still got to take the task within the time limit. There's also, of course, going to be some things like do this in your IDE or do that with Git. And so you're going to want to remember and practice doing things with Git and in your IDE. The final project deliverable will be due on December 3rd, and this is going to be more of a chance for those of you that haven't gotten in enough commits to get in those commits. Remember, commit is what you want to do. Keep on committing. Regular record of commit is the #1 way to get a good grade in this class in terms of the project. All right, last time we talked about debugging, talked about simplifying the test case, and then we talked about finding the bug. Can somebody give me an example of what I mean by simplifying the test case? Let me know in the chat. What does it mean to simplify the test case? I can wait all day, so let me know, chat. What do I mean by simplifying the test case? Who knows? Hit me up in the chat to let me know what do I mean by simplifying the test case. Test only one thing, that's a great answer, and reduce your test to simply testing the single bit that causes a fault. Again, a great answer. isolating the variable that's doing the testing. Yep, these are great answers. In the example that we looked at, so all of those are, I would say, right answers. Thank you very much. Just to add on to that, if you had a input like a file that was causing things to fail, and it was like 1,000 lines long, maybe you should try and reduce it to only the few lines of that input file that causes things to fail. So you want to check in the simplest possible test. All right, so today's lecture, we're going to be talking a little bit about static analysis, and we're going to do it in the context of helping us to find bugs, but it's useful for lots of different things, and static analysis is just something that you should be aware of because it is something that people use to analyze their code for various reasons all the time. The static analysis is just simply the analysis of your computer program without running it. It is, always going to be performed by a program. Now, this is in contrast to dynamic analysis. So, static analysis is without running the program. Dynamic analysis is an analysis of your code as it runs. Static analysis kind of reasons over all potential project runs, and it has the drawback of some of its answers are imprecise because it'll have things like false positives, things that never really occur in practice. Dynamic analysis, contrast, is running your program and then analyzing it during that time. It reasons over a specific set of runs, like an actual run, and it gives you very precise answers, but it doesn't reason over all the potential runs, and so you could definitely miss some bugs. Some of the advantages of static analysis. It doesn't require inputs. Why do you think it could be a big advantage to not require inputs to do analysis of your code? Let me know in the chat, why is it an advantage to not have to require inputs? What do I even mean by inputs? Anybody have any guesses? Let me know in the chat. I can wait here all day. So, what is the drawback? Not requiring input can be slow. It's a good idea. Somebody says input may not be enough. Also, like in the right direction. Both of these are good ideas. And I want you to think about it from the context of creating a test case. Imagine you had to create a test case, and you had to the thing that you were testing required some kind of input file. Well, you have to create that whole input file, and it's kind of a pain to create that test case, right? So the advantages of static analysis is before you've even created that input file or that test case, you can analyze your code. So that is one of the big advantages. You don't have to have like example inputs in order to this with your code. All right. So one of the things I want to mention in terms of a disadvantage of static analysis is it does have a lot of false alarms, meaning that because it is a little bit imprecise, it may find things that it thinks are problems that may not be real problems. Okay, that's something we want to keep in mind as we move forward. Here is an example, very kind of simple program analysis, or at least it's finding out something very simple. It is trying to detect program invariants, or things that don't change. So at this line, return statement in this particular program, and an invariant, which is just something that never changes, is that z will always be 10. You can see that's true because z is assigned to 10 right here, and then z is returned, right? That is an example of program invariant program analysis. And why would you ever want to know that z must be 10 here? Well, if you had a call in your code where you did a check, and if it was less than 5, then it would crash and explode, and otherwise it would do nice things. It would be good to know that this crash and explode never was called. So doing things like finding invariants can help you figure out what actually is going to happen in your code at runtime. However, it can be really hard to figure out these things. In this example, once you have a method called magic, or essentially any complex function that you call that may return something, it's very difficult to reason about variance and what's going on and what z is actually equal to at this point, because analyzing this function itself becomes very complicated. So static analysis can be good when it's simple things like here, but it can be very expensive to do when it's complicated code and complicated subroutines. Now, there's two concepts that you definitely want to know about related to static analysis, and they are completeness and soundness. Completeness is like just what you would think it is that like if there is a violation of a property, it is a true violation, meaning that, if it reports something, it is actually a problem. So static analysis not complete because sometimes it will report false positives or things that are not really a problem. Now, soundness is knowing that your conclusions hold for all cases, meaning things like it's guaranteed to identify all violations of a property. Static analysis generally is sound, meaning it does kind of find everything. But dynamic analysis is not sound because it doesn't necessarily execute all scenarios in your program. Now, a note about kind of computability and decidability. So think about it. Can we have program analysis that is both sound and complete? And the short answer is you can't. The rationale is that run into the halting problem, right? So essentially, like program analysis at the simplest type of program analysis could be, will this program terminate? And by looking at it, you can't actually tell, so you'd have to run it. But if you run it and it doesn't terminate, you don't know if it's ever going to terminate because it could terminate maybe in a few weeks. And so any program analysis is essentially has this kind of problem embedded in it, and so it can be undecidable. What I want to say here, again, we don't want to get into this too much, but we just want to know that static analysis, like complete static analysis, reduces to the halting problem, so it's undecidable in general. So we have to do things like take shortcuts if we're going to do static analysis, and that's why we get things like false positive, things like that. All right, so let's think about when we might use static and dynamic analysis. Like, for instance, if I want to make a compiler optimization, which will make the program run faster, it needs to be sound, so we need to use static analysis. And so the choice there is kind of obvious. However, if I want to make something that helps me find bugs, I'm kind of in a conundrum because I could use static analysis, but that could give me lots of false alarms, like give me too many reports, and some of those are not that interesting, and so the developer drowns in warnings and they just don't pay attention. However, if you use dynamic analysis, you could definitely miss bugs, so it's not actually super helpful. So if you're trying to make things use static analysis or dynamic analysis to find bugs, it's not clear which way is actually better. All right, so now we're going to come to today's task, and what I want you to do is to right now install the QA plug find bugs. Let me know by hitting the heart if you have installed the find bugs plugin. let me know by hitting the heart emoji if you have installed this plugin. And it's like only a few of you have, so I'm going to make sure that I put up its name again in the chat. It is QA Plug Find Bugs, and I want everybody to install it into Android Studio. All right, so I want everybody to install QA Find Bugs, and it looks like some of you have. And then I want you to run it on the program that we have been playing with for the past few days, and that is the Reddit app. And I can just show you what I mean by that. Let me share my screen very quickly. All right, so now I think you can see my screen. And here I have the Reddit thing we've been working on, and I can do things like analyze code, and hit OK. And then you'll see it using this. Takes a minute. In a minute, see results over here, I believe. Assuming that this actually works this time. All right, and then I have, as you can see, some bugs reported by Find Bugs over here. And here's what I want you guys and gals to do. I want you to, first of all, get Find Bugs. I want you to run it on this program. And then I want you to find one of these bugs and try and understand what the report is telling you that is wrong, and even try and do something to make it go away, okay? So we are gonna go ahead and find bugs. We're gonna use that plugin. We're gonna pick any of these that you want. There's 90 of them. And I want you to read the description, like for instance, read what it's talking about, go to where it is. You know, you can even click to visit that place in the code, understand what the problem is according to Find Bugs, and then do some code changes in order to fix or eliminate that error. All right, so I'm going to go back to sharing just the presentation so I can watch what y'all are saying in the chat. Hit me up with any questions. We're going to have just about 5 or 6 minutes to go ahead and try and do this, maybe a little longer. But let me know what questions you have in the chat. As you try and do this, we're using Find Bugs to find a particular bug. I want you to understand that particular bug, and then I want you to try and fix it. Run Find Bugs again after you fix it, see if that warning goes away. Any questions that you have, hit me up in the chat. Otherwise, I'll give you about 2 songs worth of time to figure this out. So here we go. We're going to listen to a couple songs and then come back and talk about it.
Mountains rough this time of year. Close the highway down. They don't want the town. I've been fighting second gear 15 miles or so, trying to beat the English snow. And I know every town worth passing through. What good does knowing do? No one to show it to. And I've grown tired of traveling alone. Tired of traveling alone. I've grown tired of traveling alone. Won't you ride with me? I've grown tired of traveling alone.
All right, and some people are reporting they're having problems with the malformed command. Let me show you one more time. I was going to be able to get it. run.
Won't you ride?
Make sure you build first.
Won't you ride?
After you build, hit analyze code. You may even see something about a malformed cannot run a program. It still works. I would just ignore this particular directive, right? Find bugs still works. You can still see it working right here. So just make sure you build first, and then afterwards run find bugs in the way that I just showed you.
Couldn't even stand upright. So high the street girls wouldn't take my pay. He said, "Come see me on a better day." She just danced away. And I've grown tired of traveling alone. Tired of traveling alone. I've grown tired of traveling alone. Won't you ride with me? I've grown tired of traveling alone. Tired of traveling alone. I've grown tired of traveling alone. Won't you ride with me? Won't you ride? Won't you ride? Pain in the outside lane. I'm tired of answering to myself. Hard like the rebuild. Hard, I don't know how much it's got left. How much it's got left. I've grown tired of traveling alone. Tired of traveling alone. I've grown tired of traveling alone. Won't you ride with me? I've grown tired of traveling alone. Tired of traveling alone. I've grown tired of traveling alone. Won't you ride with me? Won't you ride? Won't you ride?
Alright, and do you guys need more time, or are you about done with this particular task? Let me know. Have you been able to build it, find a bug, and then fix a bug? Let me know in the chat if you need just one more song or whether you are already
From the
finished.
sky we look so organized and brave. Walls that make up barricades and graves. Daddy's little empire built by hands and built by slaves. From the sky we look so organized and brave. In the heat I saw you rising from the dirt. Drunken tears and tugging at your skirt. If only you could tell me then what part of you got hurt. In the heat I saw you rising from the dirt. Take my hand, baby, we're over land. I know flying over water makes you cry. Where's that liquor card? Maybe we shouldn't start. But I can't for the life of me say why. From the sky the highway straight as it could be. A string pulled tight from home to Tennessee. Still somehow those ditches took the better part of me. From the sky Take my hand, baby, we're overland. I know flying over water makes you cry. Been in the sky so long, seems like a long way home. But I can't for the life of me say why did we leave our love behind? Did we leave our love behind? Did we leave our love behind? Did we leave our love behind?
For the rest of you, let me know in the chat whether you're ready to move on or not. Let me know if you're ready in the chat to move on or whether you need just another minute.
Take my hand, baby, we're overland. I know flying over water makes you cry. Been in the sky so long, seems like a long way home. But I can't for the life of me say why did we leave our love behind? Did we leave our love behind?
Hello, hello, hello. The rest of you out there, are you ready to move on? Well, we're gonna actually song. We are moving on regardless. Let me show y'all what I would do. And sorry for those of you that it's not working for. Sometimes that happens with computers, as you know. All right, here I have a bug. I mean a error listed right here. And let's see what it says. It says, I'm going to read it to you in case it's too small for you to read. It says, excuse me, dead store to limit in the file name. And then when I double click on it, I'm up here and you can see there is something assigned to limit, but limit, the variable, is never used. And what I would do to fix this is I would just simply remove this entirely because the variable limit is never being used. I would hit save and I would build, and then I would reanalyze the entire project, and I'm pretty sure that would go from 23 to 22. And let's reanalyze the project. Waiting for the compilation to finish, but I think it should start here in a second. You can see, I don't know if y'all can see that, but the count is now 22. And you can see up here, there is no longer error. And there's no error down here. So I made that error or go away. And someone is asking, how do I access the plugin once installed? You're going to want to go to analysis and go ahead and run it at the bottom. So hopefully you saw me do that. Analysis. So anyway, what I did was fix the variable that was not being used. I just removed it, and then I no longer got a static analysis bug. Okay, so I'm going to talk next about slicing, but I wanted to ask you guys and gals, did anybody get that to run in their own workspace? Did anybody get the static analysis tool to run in their own workspace? Let me know in the chat. Did you get it to run in your own workspace? Let me know in the chat. Yes or no? Some got it with empty results. Did anybody get any results in their own workspace? Oh, hello, hello. At least one person got it running with results. Anybody else? Anybody else get it running with results? Come on, guys and gals. Yes, great. We got a few. Okay, that was definitely a stretch thing to do. Great. Excellent, guys and gals. Now, I want you to think, if you got it running, think about all the results that you saw. And if you didn't get it running, think about the results that I showed you on my screen. Did it feel like a whole lot of results on your screen? Is it something that you were really eager to go ahead and tackle and fix all those results? So did it seem like a whole bunch of results on your screen? What do you guys and gals think? Point I want to make here is that when you do static analysis, like remember when we used check style? Yeah, so this find bugs was not as many as some expected, and that is true. It's not as many as I expected either, but that's good. Find bugs is finding a bit more serious bugs. Remember when we used check style and it had like hundreds and hundreds of things that were wrong with your project? The problem with static analysis tools is that sometimes they can have a lot of things that are problems, but they're not necessarily huge problems, and they'll give you lots of results, and it can be annoying. So that's one thing that you need to be aware of with static analysis tools. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit more about a particular program analysis called program slicing. Program slicing is just the idea of starting from one particular line of code, going backwards or forwards in the code and getting only the lines related to that particular line of code. Now it does a lot of, the reason that we like to talk about program slicing is it does a lot of things that are common to many types of program analysis, like building a program dependence graph, building a control flow graph, building a like definitions and usages relationships. And again, program slicing is all about, hey, I have this one line of code, it uses the variables X, Y, and Z, and then it follows those variables backwards in your code and gets only the lines of code related to those initial variables, for instance. For instance, here's a concrete example. If you started here at line 40 and X was the thing that you were interested in, or this is like you're slicing on line 40, you would go backwards and see that, hey, in line 30, X was used. In fact, Y was given to it, so now Y is also relevant. Oh, and I see up here, Y is used in line 20, and it's assigned to. But hey, in line 10, this X that is gotten from the user is actually completely irrelevant because that X is overwritten, right? So this is a writing X, a writing Y, a writing X, a reading Y, and a reading X, right? And so this is what I would call a def use change. X is defined here on line 30, but it's used here on line 40. Y is defined here on line 20, and it's used here on line 30. And these are some of the fundamental program analysis concepts that you would need to know if you ever wanted to study or create your own program analysis. Let's take a look a little bit more in depth at this using Fibonacci numbers example. For instance, let's say we had Fibonacci C. Here is the program. Here is where the program is kind of called from. Fibonacci and print it out. And this is what it would look like if you actually ran it. The things, kinds of things that we can think about are statements that can change the program state, meaning they assign to a certain variable, or control statements. And these are statements that control like what is the next thing that is executed. Like any if statement controls whether the next line is executed. And in terms of write, any variable assignment controls whether that variable is written to. Other statements that can be affected are read statements, any statement that reads the state of the variable, and of course executed whether that statement is actually executed. So for instance, if we took that program that we were just looking at, we could classify each line. For instance, Fibonacci n actually writes to n. Int f writes to f. F0 equals 1 writes to F0. F1 equals 1 writes to F1. While n is greater than 1, actually reads the value of n. N equals n minus 1 both reads from n right here and writes to n, assigns to it, and so on. So you can get an idea of who reads and writes to certain variables. This is an important concept in many program analyses, reading and writing to certain variables. Another important concept in program analysis is the idea of control flow, and that's just taking a normal program and then kind of graphing it out. Like, here's where you start it, here's line 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, when we get to the while loop, there's a couple different things we could do. We could go to line 5. However, at the end of the loop, we could actually go to F and exit, okay? So this is just a graph representation of the code structure, a control flow graph. And this is something that is used in all kinds of program analysis. This is something that you would definitely want to know about if you ever want to do program analysis. Control flow graph. There are lots of control flow patterns, like here's what an if statement looks like. If some condition, then do something over here. However, if that condition is not true, do something else, and then always go to the next thing. This is what the while looks like, which we just saw, and there are other types of loops that look somewhat similar, but just slightly different. Now, we talked about reading and writing to variables, and those are kind of data dependencies, and those are shown here in terms of red lines. For instance, here we have int f, which is defined, and if you follow the red line down to here, f is actually returned. And you can see other relationships, like here f is defined, and then that same f is used or read from right here, right? So these data dependencies are shown in red, and they're just the relationship between when things are defined, like F0 is defined right here. Follow that down. F0 is read from right here. So that's a data dependence graph. There's also the control dependence graph, which is just taking the control flow graph and calculating what we would call a dominator. But we're not going to go over that as much. Let's focus on the data dependence, which is the red edges. That is simply the relationship from where a variable is written to and where it is read from. Program slicing uses all of these data structures, control flow graphs, data dependence graphs, and even control dependence graphs, and it slices, meaning takes a subset of the overall graph. It takes a subset only relevant to the statement that we're looking at right now. We're not going to get into exactly how it's computed, but it's basically following the data dependencies and the control dependencies backwards, or in this case, forwards. And you can do backwards and forward slicing. Backwards slicing would be moving from here, for instance, backwards and getting only the relevant things. and forward slicing would be here, for instance, and getting only the relevant things. There are many different types of slicings that you can do, but it's kind of enough to know that program slicing is a thing. It calculates a subset of a program relevant to the statement that you're looking at. But most importantly, it uses common things like the control flow graph and the data dependence graph to calculate its analysis. And these things, the control flow graph and the data dependence graph, those are common things that are going to be used if you implement any kind of program analysis. All right. So I wanted to mention just a little bit other purposes of program analysis. For instance, you can find uninitialized variables. You can find unused variables like we saw in the example with find bugs. You can find code that is actually never executed. And a lot of IDEs kind of offer all of these things, and they will highlight and bring to your attention, hey, I've analyzed your code when I compiled it, and I found that, hey, this code you can actually never reach, so maybe you should just remove it. Other things that are perhaps even more useful is that it can find static analysis can be used to find things like memory leaks, which can be really annoying to find. Interface misuse, and if you ever able to get find bugs to run on that project, you will definitely see at least one of these misuses of an interface, and even null pointer kind of warnings or places where a null pointer exception could occur because you dereference something that was possibly never initialized. And these are all slightly more serious things that you would definitely want to look into. Find bugs is the tool that we have installed into Android Studio. However, it's just one potential static analysis tool. There's CheckStyle, there's Find Bugs. I think there's one called Spot Bugs in Android Studio. There's Code Sonar. There's many different types of static analysis tools that you could potentially use on your code. And many businesses automatically run static analysis tools on their code when you commit it. If it has too many warnings or errors, then they will actually automatically reject your commit. So it's good to be aware of these things. Now, there is a great deal of difficulty when analyzing programs. There can be a lot of imprecision problems. And for instance, these come from things like pointers or indirect access, access through arrays, and especially where you have arrays with an index, because it's really hard to analyze those without actually running the project. Other things that can cause problems is, of course, dynamic dispatch. You call a shape.draw, but you don't know whether it's a circle or a square or whatever, so you don't know exactly what's being called. And of course, concurrency causes all kinds of problems that are very difficult to solve statically. Like, it's very hard to identify threading problems statically. You often would have to run the program to really figure out what was going on there. So, what do I want you guys and gals to get from today? What I want you to know is that static analysis is a powerful tool for understanding your code. One very famous static analysis is program slicing. It's actually not super practical, but the reason that it's famous is because it's a good example, and it has the data dependence graph, program dependence graph, and the control flow graph. Especially the control flow graph and the data dependence graph. Those are things that you want to kind of know what they are, because they're very simple concepts there, but they're important to kind of understanding how code works. If you are given code, for instance, you might want to know how to draw the control flow graph for that code. That would definitely be a good exam question. And the good news is, though, that it's very simple. You just draw a node for each statement, and you connect them, according to what might happen. So drawing a control flow graph is a very simple exercise, but it's important. Like, it shows that you understand how code works. great thing about static analysis is you can do it on your own machine, or you can integrate it into the build system. So you can find bugs on your own machine. Like if you want to be super diligent and, like, let's say you get a job and you want to be super diligent about checking in only great code, you can download one of these plugins to your machine and you can run it before you check in any code, and it'll probably help you avoid making several embarrassing check-ins. However, it's also great if you're kind of in charge of the build system at work. You could say, hey, I'm tired of seeing these kinds of bugs here. I'm going to turn on static analysis on the build server. And then when somebody checks in something that's not so good, it's going to automatically email them and say, hey, I found this bug. You need to fix it before we accept your change. So again, program analysis, control flow graph is very important. And this kind of technology is used to help you find bugs proactively, and there's a lot of tooling available to support you in this. All right, so that is the lecture for today. Remember, on Monday is going to be our last lecture of the semester, although we might have some exam review or something like that going on later on. So don't forget to come to the last lecture. There will probably be a class activity. And I want to go ahead and open it up to any questions y'all might have right now. And there will probably be a class activity for a grade on Monday, just so y'all know. And yeah, I'd like to go ahead and open it up to any questions y'all might have. Otherwise, that is the end of lecture for today. Hope y'all have a great weekend. And again, don't hesitate to ask any questions right here in Menti that you might have. Stick around for just a minute or two to answer questions. If you don't have any, I'm going to get the heck out of here. And somebody's asking, are the slides already available? Great question. Let me go ahead and do that right now while we're this. Go ahead and put the slide link. Today is the 20th. We're here. This was static. And right there. And because you asked so nicely, maybe I should do the last lecture too. And go ahead and hit that up. Answer the rest of the questions that y'all have been putting up there. All right, so the slides are up. Great question. Thanks for asking. Somebody's asking, will my grade be penalized if the app project isn't finished by December 3rd? Now, let me see something. I'm going to see. Hold on a sec. I'm going to check something for y'all. I'm going to see when is the last day for me to get in grades. Last day. Looking this up for y'all real quick. Second here. Final grades are due by the 14th, so I'm definitely 14th. That is a Monday. So would need I would definitely allow people to continue to work till like the 9th or 10th or so if they would like to. I'd like to you guys and gals to have as much time as possible. Remember, we're working in an agile fashion, though. I want to be clear. We're working in kind of an agile fashion, so you always want to have something working. Um, like every iteration, you want to have something working, right? So you should. It's not about being feature complete. It's about having something that you are demoing to me, like in the video next Tuesday, and in the final thing. Um, so you won't necessarily be penalized if your app isn't like fully fleshed out, fully feature complete, like ready to go to the world for everybody to use. Um, it's more about making sure you have regular commits all the time. All right. Is December 3rd the due date for the last deliverable? Also the day the app is due. I guess what I'm saying is I will give y'all some extra days to work on it if you would like that. So let me know in Slack or whatever if y'all would like that. But you know, that is essentially when the app is due. I would give people that would really like it until the following week, but you know, I would try and shoot for December 3rd if I were y'all. Depends on when you end your semester. Somebody's asking, are you currently teaching or planning on teaching any additional classes at VCU? Yes, I do teach user interfaces in the spring. So it's a class that is similar in that focus on making one big class project. However, the focus for that class is on making a really good user experience. So we talk a lot about how the app looks, how the app experience is, how the artwork is, how you know, yeah, how the user experience is. And so it's all focused on that. And I teach that in the spring. And yeah, if you liked this kind of class where it's kind of more, interactive, I give you credit for doing stuff. It's emphasis on doing stuff and not quite as much on tests. You will probably like that class as well. Somebody's asking, saying that the Opens Notes quiz still isn't graded for me. Yep, so next week is my big grading week because I am not teaching anymore. I always prioritize doing the lectures, getting the lectures good and ready for y'all, and making sure I'm prepared and I have some example like an Android Studio. So I prioritize that over grading because I always want to go over the TA's grades before I release them. So I am grading, like finalizing a lot of grades next week. So I hope to have almost all of your grades ready next week so you can know kind of how much you want to study for the final. Somebody's asking, would it be a bad idea to stop committing from now until the project is due? Uh, yeah, so I would definitely not recommend that. It is it is possible if you had a bunch of activity throughout the semester, it's possible that you could get away with this. However, for most people that haven't had like a ton of activity in terms of commits throughout the semester, it would definitely be a bad idea. Um, Somebody's asking also, does the activity have to do with the Reddit app because I can't get it to work? No, we'll have in-class activity on Monday that is unrelated to the Reddit app. Sorry that some people had some problems getting that to work. That's just an issue whenever you try and get an app that everybody can use. It is always challenging. Yes, so somebody's asking, are we going to be required to turn in our application source or open up our repository to you? Yes, yes, yes. This is going to be a big part of the last deliverable. I'm going to be looking more in detail at code and bits and things like that. So, yes, absolutely. That's a great question. Somebody's asking, are we going to be giving feedback on our teammates? Eh, maybe. We might have some informal feedback on the teammates. In general, what happens in these classes is most, not most, but there are definitely some people that are angry about their teammates. That always happens. And here's what I would really encourage you to do is learn from this experience where you had to work with other random people, 'cause that's what's going to happen at work. You're going to have to work with random people who you may or may not like. Learn from that experience and try to make it go better from both sides next time. Like, there will be people at work that don't do their job, that don't do a good job, etc., etc. But you can't escalate the conflict so much at work, right? Because you have to work with these people. Like, and if you think they're an idiot, they don't get fired unless the boss thinks they're an idiot, right? So I want you to take your experience in this class and try and be a better group mate yourself next time, but also just try and manage bad. That is a thing that happens in real life, and that's something you'll need to do. Part of growing up. All right. Thanks a lot for all the questions. That helps me know y'all were paying attention, but also that you're out there. Makes it a lot more fun for me. Hope you all have a great weekend and everything. I'll be here on Monday, and we will have a class activity on Monday, just so you know. And I will see y'all for the class on Monday. Take it easy.